It's common these days for property investors to engage the services of a buyer's agent, but in an increasingly crowded industry, how do you make sure that the professionals you're dealing with are giving you the right information and the right advice? I'm Terry Ryder, and the Property Playbook starts now. Amid a fast-paced world and increasingly busy lifestyles, it makes sense to engage a quality buyer's agent to save you time and fill in the gaps in your knowledge with property investment. But today there are thousands of practitioners calling themselves buyer's agents. It can be difficult to know whether the people you're talking to are professionals or simply spruikers. Today I'm joined by Jad Chahal and Omar Dagis, who built a successful buyer's advocacy called Citadel Agency, based on the principles of thorough hands-on research to guide their clients to the right properties in the right location. Omar and Chad, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having us, Terry. Really appreciate it.
Omar, could we start with a little bit of background about Citadel, how you got started, where you operate, and how you go about your business?
Absolutely. So Citadel Agency is a buyer's agency, a property investment agency.
Sure.
Looking to help mums, dads, business owners, seasoned investors, or first-time investors invest in the residential or commercial space Australia-wide.
Okay, so you do commercial property as well as residential?
Yeah, assisting people in that space. Yeah.
Okay, and how long have you been in business?
We started the business roughly 3 years ago and have been growing the team ever since. Jad and I started the business back in 2023 and it's been a fantastic journey so far.
Based in Melbourne, but you get around the country a bit. We'll talk about that in a little while. But one of my fundamental beliefs is that before you invest in real estate, you should invest in knowledge and seeking quality data and expert advice. Is that sort of the fundamental basis on which you operate your business?
Absolutely. I think now in today's world, Terry, more than ever, people educate themselves online, and that's the way that they learn the fundamentals of basically anything that they're learning to educate themselves on, and we're big believers of that. So we put a lot of content online to be able to educate whoever it is that's trying to learn to get into the property market. And then from there, we take it a further layer and try to actually give them a lot more insight into the reasons why they're investing in property and what it looks like for them over the next 10, 20, 30 years, which is what their mortgage rates and mortgage lifeline looks like.
So I suppose you have to understand a lot about your clients and understand where they're coming from, what they're trying to achieve. Maybe they don't even know what they're trying to achieve. Sometimes you have to help them with that.
And that's exactly right, Terry. I mean, for us, the most important question is, what's the goal? And what we do is we then reverse engineer that goal, and then hopefully we can identify how many properties it's going to take to be able to achieve that goal. So for things like, for instance, how many holidays you want to go on per year, what it looks like in terms of how many cars you want to buy and how frequently. I mean, you have to understand it all.
When you want to retire.
Yeah, when you want to retire, exactly right. You have to understand it from A to Z to be able to help them in the most efficient way possible. But then also you give them an understanding of what that Northern Star looks like, and so how can we attain it? And when you have a goal, you can hopefully achieve that goal. And what we like to say is we measure twice, we cut once. If we understand what we're aiming to achieve, we can achieve it in a more efficient way.
Sounds like a great philosophy. So Jad, I believe there's lots of components to a successful investment, but locational choice for me is the most important of them. Is that the way you see it at Citadel?
Absolutely. So if you think about the Australian landscape, we've got 550 plus local government areas, 15,000 or so suburbs, and it's only growing. And if you think about what happens when clients are looking to engage in the Australian property market, it's very easy for them to get overwhelmed, what we call analysis paralysis. And so it's very important to not only help guide them through what are the next steps in terms of what regions that they should be purchasing on. So that's incredibly important and overwhelmingly the lion's share of what makes for a good property investment. But there's also another part of the equation, and that's also understanding for that given client what their specific needs are when it comes to their budget, but also, and this is something we typically see with the clients that come our way, they flirt with the idea of maybe even one day moving there. So it's a bit of a hybrid where you're looking for a good property investment while also doubling it up with a bit of lifestyle, sea or tree change as well. So
you use the word overwhelm. That's the word I hear from property investors or prospective property investors the most. They look at the size of the country and where do I buy that? They use the word overwhelm a lot, and that's where they need a qualified professional to help them, I think.
Absolutely, and it's very easy to have or experience that condition, that analysis paralysis condition. So that's why with the right method in terms of how do you select these regions, it becomes incredibly important.
So how do you guys go about qualifying and quantifying a location that you're happy to recommend to one of your clients?
Yeah, so when it comes to the quant, the last 2 decades I've been working in corporate Australia, and one of the things that was applied there is the analytics rigor in terms of how do you identify opportunities. As an example, we now extend that to mums and dads. When it comes to the quant, you can be overwhelmed with the number of parameters in terms of the supply and demand levers that are all impacting these regions. That becomes critical to be able to then have a buyer's agent help them navigate through that. So that's one element. The second element is, of course, the qualitative assessment. So things like demographics, government infrastructure, which is incredibly important for these high growth regions. These are all fundamental factors that makes for good buying, and we incorporate that whenever we are putting regions forward. But the last, and this is where I think it's absolutely mission critical to go and visit these places so you can gain that intimate knowledge in terms of what's happening on the ground, speaking to agents, speaking to small businesses, but also, prospective people that are looking to purchase houses in those areas as well.
Yeah, that's the part of what you guys do that really interests me. The fact that you work with the numbers, and the numbers are important, but you don't totally rely on that. You want to go and touch and feel a location.
Absolutely.
Get a feel for it. So you've travelled quite widely. Recently, you've been concentrating on regional Tasmania, for example.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So Tasmania, for all the right reasons, because of government infrastructure, developments, you've got the port expansion there, you've got the AI facility, for all the right reasons, is poised for growth into the future. Yeah. Now, we made the trip to Tasmania earlier in the year, and when we were purchasing properties there for our clients, there was around about 3 to 5 offers for any given property that we were putting forward. Now, you fast forward to where we are today at the end of December, and that has grown exponentially. There's not 5, 10, we're actually experiencing some agents complaining to us that there are 20 offers on the table and they're getting overwhelmed. Yeah. So that gives us a really good gauge in terms of how these markets are moving, and that's why it's really important to go there, broker the right relationships on the ground, so that can open up opportunities for our clients.
Sure. So, I mean, it's obviously time consuming, and there's expense involved as well, but obviously you feel it's worth it to make the effort. I mean, I understand you've been to North Queensland, Central Queensland in your travels as well.
Correct. Yeah, it's a hard sell with the missus, but she's very supportive. But that's what's required. If a buyer's agent isn't doing the legwork that's required, then the value add is, at least in this position, not quite there. So it's very important.
Yeah, there's nothing quite like actually being in a location to really understand what it's about. You can look at all the research, the numbers, you can look at images online, but actually touching and feeling it makes a big difference, I think.
Absolutely, and the level of insight that you get on the ground is absolutely critical as well. So if you take, for instance, our more recent travels to Far North Queensland, you've got a number of townships there that are doing incredibly well. But when you go and visit the precincts there, what you find is, well, there are certain drivers not only for the economy, but also why people are moving to these regions. So that's why we've made an executive decision to focus on one region in particular, which was Townsville at the time.
Yeah.
And that was the right move for our clients. One of the big draw cards that we saw, though, is when you speak to people on the ground, and you'll never see this in the data, but there are like AFL clubs popping up left, right and centre. And that's because of the Melbourne migration that was moving up to Far North Queensland. And that's a level of insight we would have never picked up on if we didn't travel. So
you couldn't have picked a better one to focus on. I mean, when we were doing the numbers, where's the best performance being on price growth in the financial year 2025? Townsville was an absolute standout. The number one place in Australia for where every suburb, unit markets, house markets, they all grew 20% plus in that 12-month period. Extraordinary stuff.
It was, and really good results to see as well for those that are purchased in there.
So you go to these places, you travel to North Queensland, Tasmania and other parts of Australia to get a feel for these markets, but also it's about developing relationships, isn't it, with people on the ground there that you're going to have to deal with.
Yeah, absolutely, definitely. I mean, who are you dealing with? Well, it's the selling agents, and so you want to be able to go down, and we might look like a young team, but it's very important for us to shake these people's hands, take them out for lunch, have a good dinner with them, and forge the relationships. And that's how these off-market opportunities are going to open up. You've got exclusive opportunities that other people just won't have access to online, and that's what we really want to forge, these relationships to be able to get the opportunities to give them to our clients so they're steps ahead.
Yeah. So selling agents, property managers, valuers, those sorts of people.
Building pest inspection inspectors, contractors, property managers. These are all the people that we want to forge relationships with.
So these people become your eyes and your ears on the ground, because when you get to the point of actually buying a property on behalf of your clients, you can't necessarily jump on a plane and fly to Townsville. You need people on the ground to
Yeah, well, I mean, look, make no mistake, at the end of the day, the selling agents are representing the vendors, and we're representing the buyers, of course. So there is a clear, expectation from us to be able to make sure that the people that we're dealing with are verified, and that's who our third-party contractors are, whether that's the building and pest inspector, the property managers, or team members that actually reside within those areas that we are buying for our clients in. So we are validating through our process from point A to point Z what these agents are telling us. So the relationships are important, yes, but we are making sure that through our process, the due diligence backs us.
Yeah. So I imagine there's a component also of achieving credibility with the selling agents on the ground. There's a level of frustration, I think, in the agency community with the number of people, calling them buyers, that they have to deal with. So you've got to try and achieve some sort of credibility, but put a bit of effort perhaps into unpeeling some of their attitudes towards buyers agents.
Yeah, absolutely. I think now more than ever, Terry, you speak to these agents and oh my God, they are getting overwhelmed with calls from buyers agents.
Yeah.
I mean, we were just looking at the stats before. There's over 4,000, I believe, buyers agents that have, popped up within the last, couple of years, and that number is growing very quickly. So you've got a number of agents that have a process, and they're really not deterring away from it. They're picking a number of people that they're working with, which are the buyers agents or, people looking to buy their own home, and they're really steering away from the masses of buyers agents that are going to these places. So I think it's really important when you brought up, we're trying to unpeel the attitudes of these selling agents. You've got to understand what their process looks like. You've got to really safeguard their relationship with their vendor, which means that you've got to follow through with their process. And so how do you do that? That begs the question to us, how do you do that? Well, for us as buyers agents at Citadel, we make sure that our expectations, and we've set a very clear parameter with our clients from the very beginning. What we then do is we follow through with our process and set a clear guideline as to how we're going to communicate with these agents, and then hopefully we can meet in the middle with them, so then that way we're not stepping on anyone's toes throughout the relationship. That fosters a really good relationship, and that allows us to build the trust and then hopefully do many deals across the years.
Okay, so we're almost out of time, but just quickly, Jed, how do consumers determine that the professionals are dealing with are the real McCoy and not the spruikers?
That's right. So void of the obvious, making sure that they're accredited, they're licensed real estate agents, pegged to a industry body such as PIPA as an example. There are a number of questions that people can ask when dealing with a buyer's agent to better understand how they operate. So one important question is, do they draw up a strategic view on what property investment looks like into the 10, 20 or 30 year period? It's a great qualifier. If they're not doing that, then it's probably a half-baked service. The other is, are they actively investing or at the very least visiting these areas? Yeah. So if they don't have that lens and they don't have that intimate knowledge of an area, then you run the risk of missing key insights. And of course, the third, ask a question around how they run their process and what it looks like if you were to engage with those buyers agents, to get a very thorough understanding in terms of how they operate relative to others as well.
Okay, great advice. That's the play for today. This program has been brought to you by hotspotting.com.au. This is Ticker. We'll be right back.